Hello and welcome to the Daft Souls podcast. I'm joined this evening by the final two people who haven't been on the cast yet, who are part of the main core crew of the podcast. Got Steve Hoggerty.
Hello.
And Keza McDonald.
Hello.
How are you doing, guys?
I'm great. How are you?
I sounded really unsure about myself there, but I'm actually really good.
You're good. You've eaten a lot today.
I have eaten, yeah, so I'm digesting a lot of bread and cheese and eggs.
Awesome. That's good.
That makes me feel better because when we had a frittata and you were nibbling at it very tentatively, but now I realise you
it all went in, Matt.
I'd have to check your pockets. So yeah, what have you guys been playing this week? Have you played anything at all? I've not. The thing is, there's no judgment here because this week, particularly, as you can see, like I'm in the process of packing up, and actually, as soon as pretty much after we finish this podcast, I'm gonna all of the equipment we're using to record it will be disassembled.
Packed, gone. Moving on with your life.
I've played about 10 minutes of Professor Layton versus the
Ace Attorney. Marvel.
It's
I'll tell you what though, Professor Layton versus Marvel could be really good.
I think it'd be great.
I'd be into that.
You could do the hack combo.
I finished that game. I played it for like 30-something hours.
Really?
Yeah. I don't quite know why, because I stopped enjoying it after about 5.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of basically enjoyable, but I stopped loving it after...
I mean, I'm still in the Layton bits.
Oh, see, it does this really unfair thing, and this isn't really a spoiler, but it does this really unfair thing where it goes... So Phoenix Wright is coming to London. He and Professor Layton are going to hang out. It's going to be amazing. Here's Gumshoe. Oh, it's going to be great. You're going to have so much interaction. And then they'll get sucked into a magical fantasy land.
Yeah.
And then from then on, the story is about this bullshit magical fantasy land that I don't give a crap about. And although you still have Layton and Luke, and you still have Maya and Phoenix, it's like, well, where's all the other characters and all the other stuff and all the other backstory that I was hoping to see mashed up here? You just basically took two great characters and put them in an entirely separate story.
I'm a bit out of the loop with some of the backstory stuff. Like I've played the first Professor Layton, and it really boggled my brain, a lot of it. I've got to be honest, it made me feel stupid. But then also clever, like as any good puzzle game should.
Yes.
And I've played a few of the Phoenix Wright games, but I found them very frustrating because they kept changing like the things that they didn't need to change and not fixing the things that they really needed to fix.
They also weren't in chronological order, were they? Neither
series is in
bounce
chronological
around
order. It's really weird. Like there's this thing, I actually had the same issue. I haven't played a Layton game for ages. I played 1, 4, and this one, I think. Maybe a bit of 2 at some point. But about halfway through the game, it's like, oh, Luke can talk to animals. I was like, what? When did that happen? Apparently it happened in like game 3. It's like, oh no, Luke can talk to animals now. It's just accepted. And I was like, right, why is he talking to this dog?
Yeah.
I was like, did I miss something?
And dogs witness loads of crime, so I don't know if you've noticed.
Previously on Layton. Luke, you can talk to dogs.
Yes, Professor! That was essentially it, but I missed it completely.
I find the same thing in the Phoenix Wright games, in the fact that occasionally it'll bring up something and I'm like, is that a reference to, is that like an in-joke or is that a clue? Should I remember that or is it just...
Do I use the limited memory capacity of my brain to remember this small bit of information?
Yeah.
I like them, but I found it frustrating the way that I loved it in one of them, where you could do they had, I think it was in the first Phoenix Wright, they had a couple of new cases that they'd added towards the end of it, which were like could rotate objects in 3D and look for clues.
Yeah, LA Noir style.
It was originally a Game Boy Advance game.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
And when they brought it to DS, they had also the new DS features in the last
They added in the rotating.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, the 3D rotation, and you could like zoom in and look and properly like examine objects for clues. And it was really cool. And I finished that thinking, oh, this is going to be so good. When the next one comes out, all of the cases are going to have that. Which didn't bring it back.
Yeah. Did you see the news about the next
It's in the 19th century, isn't it?
Yes. Now, what I'm interested in is how the hell are they going to figure out... Because in the localization, they've always pretended that Phoenix and Maya are American, even though it doesn't make any sense. Even when it like patently stops making sense that she lives in a Buddhist temple and there's a medium, they're like, oh, she's in Missouri. They just always have just dodged around that.
Her parents are like really chilled out.
Yeah. So they've basically... Now they're like, well, now it's set in 19th century Japan. How are you going to get around that? I really hope the localization is just like, we're in the Pilgrim times now. This is Boston.
We need to travel across America.
Yeah, because they do like pretend.
Even
when there's like onigiri and stuff, they say like sandwich in the localization. It'd be like, I'm eating a sandwich, and he's clearly eating like a rice ball, obviously.
I mean, I just think as well, like, I like all the forensic stuff as well. They can't do forensics, can they? I'm a bit concerned because actually I don't really like it. I didn't like it in Phoenix Wright when they started getting a bit supernatural with it. I liked it when it was like Jonathan Creek, the game.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the Layton versus Ace Attorney is all about. Well, it's not.
That's
Actually,
the thing. It's like it pops up.
Witchcraft and stuff is like a running theme.
Well, it's in Layton, they always had mysticism, but it was the kind of Scooby-Doo style mysticism.
That's right.
Where at the end, you go, oh, this is the reality of what happened.
Yeah.
And then it was always like a little twist, like, oh, but maybe it wasn't all just a dream. So I kind of like that.
I love the story in the first Layton when it ended. I mean, I don't know, I was really touched by that, but it was really clever and interesting.
I thought that was lovely, yeah.
It was really nice, especially because I didn't expect it. I was like, this game doesn't have a story.
Layton versus Wright does have that twist at the end that's really rewarding and touching as well. But then I thought about it for more than 5 minutes. I'm not enormously like picky when it comes to plot holes and stuff, but I'm pretty sure there are some really glaring things that don't make any sense.
I'm sure. Well, I'm a bit, I don't know, I've only, like I said, I've played it for about 5-10 minutes, and I'm like, just because I'd finished Bravely Default, I played some Monster Hunter, and I realised I got to the point with Monster Hunter. I was talking about this last podcast in the second podcast, which will not be spoken of. We've not had a good run so far, but hopefully in the future we'll be better.
That's because you've not had me and Steve.
I think it's basically at both times we've had Joe and Quinn's, and the podcast has gone horribly wrong. So I think there's some sort of ley line going on between them. But yeah, I've got the point in Monster Hunter where I've got to Lucretius or whatever, the big thing.
Oh, the lionfish thing.
Yeah.
What's his name? I've killed like 400... not Lagiacrus.
Yeah, something like that.
It
may as well be that.
Lagiacrus the big dragon guy or the lion?
No, it's the underwater thing you see at the start that scares you off.
Oh, that's Lagiacrus. Yeah.
See, sorry, this is...
Laggy.
You know anything about
No, Monster Hunter's in my blind spot.
I'm going to bore your tits off with this.
It's alien as fuck if you've not played one, and it's kind of like...
good, though.
It's really charming, though, at first. It kind of gets its teeth into you because of the fact that you play it and you're just like, what the fuck is this? Because at first it seems really normal, and you're like, oh, this is just a really simple like RPG thing. And then you realise it isn't.
Yeah,
and then you start to realise all the weird stuff about it, and you're like, this is strange.
Why does everybody on this island have assless chaps?
Yeah.
Why do these little cats have clothes? Why is this little pig dressed as a melon?
This sounds incredible.
Well, that's it.
Seriously, one thing that nobody ever talks about with Monster Hunter is
Assless chaps.
It's really funny. It's hilarious. It has a lot of stupid shit in it that's just so lighthearted and beautiful and funny, and a mile away from the kind of usual po-faced, boring-ass game story where it's like, you must protect the village from the dragon because reasons.
The pig is actually a really good thing.
That's so good.
I mean, because there have been multiple layers of me not understanding it and thinking, like, oh, actually, I get it now, and then being like, oh, maybe I don't get it, and then trying to understand stuff like the way that the equipment system works and being like, what the fuck is this? But at this moment where I was looking on a thread about how to kill something, and loads of people said, did you hug the pig before you went on the mission?
Yeah, you got to hug the pig for the buff. Pig buff.
But then the thing is, the pig buff is this thing, and this is one of these lovely little like gaming stories that I'm glad I know now, is the fact that like there's a little pig at the farm where you can go to the farm and you can produce like items easier than going and collecting them. And then you've got this fat little pig that you can give it a cuddle.
With good timing.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is it has exactly the same thing as the food cooking thing, where it plays a little tune when you're cooking the meat.
Josephine, yakimashita!
Yeah, or so tasty, as it says in the English version. But there's basically, the pig is the cause of some sort of like massive debate, because some people say that the pig is only there to be a practicing tool for the cooking, so that you can practice hugging the pig to practice getting the timing right for cooking meat.
Oh.
But other people are sure that hugging the biff gives you a buff that increases your luck and gives you a better chance of finding items. But the thing is, the pig buff has never been proven.
I'm on Team Pig Buff though.
Oh,
like I want Pig Buff to be real.
I don't think it is real though. I've looked it up and everyone says there's no evidence to suggest that hugging the pig does everything.
And
yet loads of people, before they go on a mission,
will hug the pig.
Will go and hug the pig.
I prefer to think that hugging the pig gives you a pig buff rather than being some dark, ironic testing ground for eating bacon. You must hug the pig to practice eating pigs. That's not cool.
That's a good point. That is a good point. But there's so many things like that as well. Like there's all these like weird theories about where monsters go, because they kind of fly around they must have patterns, but you'll find them in one area, and then when you fight them, they'll fuck off somewhere else when you give them a bit of stabbing, and they usually sleep in a certain place. But sometimes you'll fight something that you fought 60 times, like a Barioth or something, and then it will go somewhere else. It will just hide somewhere completely unexpected. And you have to paintball them to know where they are. So when you've fought a monster lots of times, you know where it hides. You tend to not bother with the paintballing because you're like, oh no, I know this guy. I know what's up with this guy. I know where he's going. And then just one time in 50, he'll just go hide somewhere else. And there's all these theories about when that happens and why that happens and what happens if you do a certain thing if that happens. It's very Dark Soulsy almost. There's a lot of mythology around Monster Hunter.
There is.
It's such a good game.
It is a really good game, but I've hit that point basically because I've been playing it on 3DS and I've played for about 30 hours, and I was chatting to Quinns last week, and I sort of said, I'm just about to kill the Lugusius or whatever, and he's like, yeah, you're about to hit the point in the game where you really need to start playing it like multiplayer.
I got Quentin into Monster Hunter.
I know, yeah.
Monster Hunter mummy.
And I'm just like, well, it had started to get a bit grindy, and I was like, I don't really have time to meet up and play it with people that much, so I was like, well, I need a new game to play. So I thought Layton. Layton versus Wright.
It's certainly not grindy.
I know, but it's annoying because the start of it, 5 minutes into Layton versus Wright, and it adds a new mysteries to Layton's book that we've got to solve. And it's kind of pissed me off because I know, having read some reviews about it, that it is like set in this supernatural land. And so it's like, that appeared to be a witch. And it kind of annoys me that it's like, well, it is a witch. And it's not like, it looked like it was a witch, but actually...
Yeah, the forensic process falls down when witches get involved.
Yeah, this is part of the issue, is that like the game, the trials are witch trials, and obviously they don't have any normal trial stuff there. So you have to just end up pulling this mad shit and using evidence. And they're like, we don't care about evidence, witch. And you're like, but now I'm just... So all the trials end up going on this just bizarre sort of logic-free rollercoaster. And what I really liked about Phoenix Wright is the way that you piece everything together and then it makes sense logically. And unfortunately in this game that doesn't happen until right at the very end because everything doesn't make sense because you can't know the big twist.
Right. That was often where the Phoenix Wright games fell down, was that if you figured it out before the game wanted
to, you'd be like, well, this is the evidence.
Yeah.
And then
no. He smashed her in the head with a vase. You go, well, no, you need to say that he found the coin on the floor first.
Yeah.
And then you can tell us that he smashed her.
And that's what I mean. That's why I stopped playing them, is actually because of the fact that it was that thing of you only had like 3 or 4 chances to get it wrong, and then you had to start the whole case again.
Yeah, dude.
And it was just horrendously archaic.
So irritating.
Like, really? You want me to play the same half an hour again?
That's how it works in real courts, though.
Everybody, clear the room.
We're going to try this again.
We're going back.
Retrial tomorrow. They do actually do that, though. They do retrials.
We did something wrong. Ignore everything that everyone just said. I know he almost looked like he admitted it, but just ignore that.
Yes, the music again. The music in the courtroom did change. It went up tempo. That is not an indicator of guilt.
May or may not have been onto something. I've been playing my 3DS as well. I've been playing Tomadachi Life.
Yes, tell me about it. Well, I mean, the thing is, I actually watched another Daft Soul guy, Gav, did a video for CVG, which is amazing. It's on 2 now, actually.
They're really
His
good.
Tomadachi Life Diaries. His second one was like... At first, I was really confused because it was a real-life song that was being sung. And I was like, was this in the game? Was this pop song already in the game? And I realised he's been typing them in because it ended with Pauline Quirk in a Link from Legend of Zelda outfit singing the tune to Birds of a Feather.
Yep. So it's basically a mix between, I'm trying to think, it's like Sims style. Sims and Animal Crossing is the obvious comparison, but there's another less obvious comparison that's kind of flown away from my head right now. But essentially you have an island, and then you are the mistress or master of this island, and you create a bunch of people to live on it. So I've got myself, my partner, some friends, and a lot of the present and past cast of RuPaul's Drag Race, which is good.
RuPaul seems to be a popular theme.
There's this coterie of games journalists, people who are obsessed with RuPaul's Drag Race. I'm one of them.
Me too.
There are a lot of them.
Are you?
Absolutely. I've never seen
Gab
it.
as well. I want to go to Madame Jojo's and watch it live for the finale.
Absolutely. You're watching the latest season right now?
Yeah.
I won't derail it.
We won't talk too much about RuPaul's Drag Race, but I've made like an island full of drag queens, which is ace, and obviously my friends and family too, which is cool. So it's got this kind of horrible capitalist core where you make your little me's happy and then they give you money so you can buy them more stuff, which makes them happier, so they give you more money. And that's kind of the core of the game. This sort of weird acquisitive...
Doesn't sound like a very stable economy.
No, it's not. It's really not. A smile is literally worth £100 in this game. And so you have this, but when it starts to get weird, it's like you've made everyone and they're all there and you've had a little chat with them and they've got their weird little synthesized voices. But then, here's where the third comparison comes in. It's also a lot like WarioWare, in that there's a lot of strange, surreal, mini gamelet things going on at all times. Like you'll kind of look at your Mii and they'll have like a bit of something on their face. And they'll be like, I've got something on my face. Can you get it for me? And like a real life, like Monty Python style hand will just reach onto the screen and start rubbing at their face if you touch it.
They do speak like Siri voices,
yeah,
don't they?
They have Siri voices, but you can change the pitch and the tone and the accent and stuff. So you can kind of reasonably, well, not approximate, but you can differentiate people's voices. But so I made Little Barry, who is the lead singer of the band Little Barry and also the guitarist of Primal Scream in the game. Don't ask why. And he was the first guy. And when they level up, you can give them like a gift, or you can teach them a song, or you can like give them you can give them an expression and stuff. So I taught him a song, and then I realized that I could edit the song. So I just put in like one of his actual songs, but then the game reinterprets it and puts it in its own like weird tune, this weird rhythm. So
that's what I'm talking about. It was probably a bit cryptic when I mentioned it earlier, but it's the fact that it's in Gav's video as his Mii, which is designed to look like Pauline Quirk, singing the lyrics of the Birds of a Feather theme tune
to a weird
different song.
And also it's phonetically done, so they'll say weird pronunciations sometimes.
Yeah.
I did spend like 15 minutes trying to get it to say Keza correctly.
Keza.
I'm Keza McDonald. No, I'm not. Ki. Because you can put in a phonetic spelling of your name and of everything in the game. So if it does mess up, like it struggled with Latrice Royale.
I imagine it would.
Yeah, so when it messes up, you just like put in Lat Reese Royale and it gets it. Which
That's
is
I like that a lot.
Really useful. Also, I'm on a really boring medical exclusion diet right now, which means I can't eat anything. So in the game, I'm just constantly feeding my Mii like spaghetti bolognese and chips.
Eating vicariously.
Yeah, I'm just literally sitting there feeding her custard pies and everything.
I mean, are there any like problems with that? I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking psychologically. This isn't like Jeremy Carr.
Is there anything concerning about the way you're approaching this game, Keza?
Do you worry? No, I'm just trying to think. Like, for example, do you remember Fable 2? I love the fact in Fable 2 it was this flippant thing of being like just being able to do all this silly shit, and it was like, but it almost became amazing when after days and days of you just doing flippant silly shit just because it was funny, you then realised there were possibly consequences, and you realised that you were irredeemably fat and your wife had left you, and it was like that was almost like, oh, because I'm just intrigued by Tomadachi Life. I'm not sure if I'll even play it because everyone's had such early access to it that I feel like by the time it comes out I might know too much about it.
There's not an awful lot to know. And it's just, every day it's just a bit weird and a bit different. And the thing that really grabs me by the figurative balls is the surrealism of it. I love Nintendo's surrealism. They do the best weird games out there. Like Japan used to do a load of weird games, but since the PS2 era, the whole Japanese games industry has been slowly dying.
It's an absolutely unique sense of humour in games as well. Like no one else. Like
Monster Hunter is the same kind of surrealism, just that kind of weird, funny, bizarre sense of humour. And Tomodachi Life is ace at that. And it's got loads of just, and like for instance, so I got a reward from my Mii. She gave me some bath salts. So I was like, what the hell do I do with these? So I used it, and then I just had to watch one of my Miis have a bath. And there wasn't like an exit or anything. So I just ended up watching like one of my drag queens have a bath for like 5 minutes while they kind of sang and steam kind of re-thread. And I'm like, what is happening here? Why am I watching them can I get out of this? Do I have to wash them? I was trying to Nintendo it up. I was trying to like rubber. It's such a weird game. It surprises me every day. I've been playing it for a week. I hope it will continue to surprise me every day for longer.
That's the thing. So I haven't played Tomodachi. So like, I wonder if it's one of those games like WarioWare where once you see everything that the game has,
probably
it's going to just run its course. Then that's it.
WarioWare is the best game in the world for about an hour. And I think Tomodachi Life, I mean, so far it's been pretty. Like, I'm getting more into it.
The surrealism sounds ace. Like, I mean, like Gav been talking. I mean, it was just. I think it was actually the final 5 seconds of Gav's latest little diary video that cracked me up the most. Where he was just like, everyone in my house has fallen in love with Slender Man, and Tyrion Lannister's just spends all his time digging on the beach. I don't know why. He doesn't ever find anything. And it was like this incredulous. It was like a twang of just him being so confused when he's saying it. He's just like, it just got like, I don't know what's going on in this game at all.
It just spawns really interesting stories because I think on day one, like a newsflash popped up saying Pauline Quirk had started selling bagels in the park.
Yeah.
And you could go visit Pauline Quirk in the park and her bagel sales aren't going very well. And then I think he bought 5 bagels and Pauline Quirk said, I'm going to give you something a little bit extra, and it was 3 more bagels.
I pops a little something for you in the bag.
Oh, what is it? It's more bagels.
That's it. It's so weird and funny.
But I worry with the whole, like, because again, I think Gav said something similar, just being like, I just watched this person go on holiday and it was like a 40-second video that I couldn't skip. As Steve says, I think as soon as it hits that point where it's like, I've seen this before, if you can't skip it, that just goes from being like bizarre to being like, oh, fuck off.
I'm really looking forward to when they start having babies with each other, because apparently there's like a whole thing that happens when they have kids, and then those kids grow up and they travel the world, and it's just all like a massive long Sims thing. This is reminding me, though, of when I have a really bad Sims problem. Like, I've not played a Sims in 7 or 8 years because I can't. Like, I end up not eating for 3 days because they're too addictive.
I got really hooked to them as well, horribly.
And Sims 2, I remember I was about 13 or 14 when that came out, and I created everyone in my family, and my dad walked into the computer room, and he just saw this, because I'm good with character creators, he just saw this perfect facsimile of our family, walking around on screen, and his face, he just went, what are you doing? And I did not have an answer for him. I was like, I am watching us do life. And he just couldn't, he was just like, this is fucking weird. You are weird. And I feel a bit like that with Tomadachi Life now. It's just, is this just really weird? Am I weird? But then it's so fun. It's so much fun.
If you'd walked into your room and you'd made lifelike dolls of your family,
I think that's what he sort of saw.
And were playing with them. That would be so creepy to see. I think that's what he was touching on.
What do you want, Daddy? I'm playing with my puppet daddy.
Puppet Daddy has a job.
He is a movie star.
Puppy Daddy reads me stories.
But no, I mean, I think The Sims was almost... I think the thing is Tomadachi Life is different because it's so flippant and silly and weird.
You don't have to micromanage, right?
The Sims was I think weirder because it wasn't weird. And
it was
Sims,
too real, actually.
It was too real, but it was the elements that were fantastical and the elements of The Sims which were strange were really aspirational. They were kind of caricatures of real aspirations.
Yeah, I want to be a rocket scientist.
Yeah, it just made it a bit darker in a way because it was you were just playing a very realistic sort of version of life, except with everything amped up in terms of money being important and jobs being important and having the ability to become world famous in any career.
I had a very depressing life in The Sims, I think 3. No, it must have been 2 still. But
I stopped after 2 for the same reason.
Yeah.
I got too hooked to it and I used to pour so many hours into it.
You know that fountain of life you could get that stops your sim from aging?
Yes.
You could get it because, they aged and died in 2. And so I got that, but there was only enough for one person to have it every day, and so obviously I gave it to me. So I got to the point where my children were old and dying, in-game children, but I was still a young scientist, and everything was fine for me. But then it just got really weird after that because I had these kind of fat old sons, kind of
existential.
Yeah, and at that point I just started thinking the game was a very, very strange because it is this kind of cheating death thing. It was kind of showing me the consequences of cheating death, which is watching everybody that grow up and die and grow old and die. And I was like, wow, this is actually taught me something now.
Yeah,
all those though, because that's end of career perks, aren't they? The Phantom of Youth, and one of the other. I think you could also get a money tree.
Yeah,
that was one money. And I don't know what the downsides to having a money tree. What life lessons you learn from having a money tree?
All the other plants in your garden die.
It's something like that.
I think it is
I'm pretty sure they all had ups and downs.
Yeah. But I like that. It's do you really want these things that everybody wants? Eternal life, money, happy, all this stuff. It's
there was some...
Will it make you happy, really?
I remember, there was some surprisingly dark stuff in The Sims 2.
Wasn't there a love potion that could make anyone fall in love with you, but they wouldn't be happy? They'd fall in love with you, but they wouldn't be happy, I think.
They'd be sad.
Yeah, they'd you never
pissing
be able to
themselves constantly.
That happens to everyone who falls in love with me, to be honest.
I still think, though, the first Sims game was my favourite just because of the fact that, and it was something that they did have a dark tone in the future games, but in different ways. As you say, they were more life
what do you actually want from life?
But what I loved about the first game, and they didn't continue to any degree, was the whole consumerist thing. Because the first game was just taking the piss out of
Absolutely, that was the underlying joke, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a great character.
It was one of it was annoying actually because it was one of the big things I really, really wanted to do a bit about in the the TV show that we did recently about games, I wanted to make a point about how the Sims is this hilarious thing, and the fact that it was making a really smart point about consumerism and about how all the really expensive stuff was only a tiny bit better than the stuff before, but it cost a fortune, and all the descriptions were like basically just bollocks.
Yeah. You did get a sentence about that in the show, didn't you?
I can't remember, but it was more the fact that then The Sims 2 became an incredible parody of it and was just about...
The descriptions have always been good, right up to the most recent, like, I don't know if they have got the same writers basically doing these. They're really sort of...
Can you imagine a soulless Sims? Like, how bad that would be? Like one with just normal writing.
I guess it would be like
humor.
7 Deadly Sins.
Oh, God.
Buy this, it will make you happier. God.
But then it was always... Because, I mean, your reviews were kind of famous to a degree. I've read some of them.
Oh, that was like EA milking their money's worth out of The Sims with endless expansion packs and stuff, and they really knew.
The Katy Perry one, I remember being a thing.
Katy Perry, there was an IKEA furniture pack and an H&M
that actually is depressing.
It was basically, you're paying
the parody
£10 to be advertised to.
Yeah, the parody has now turned in on itself again.
Yes, but it's always got a soft spot in my heart, The Sims games.
I love them.
And it is The Sims 4 they're working on now, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I'm sort of glad that Maxis and EA got slapped so hard on the wrist for SimCity, the most recent SimCity game with its always online and its DRM
Sims
stuff.
Online didn't work out either.
And they've stripped it all back down again. And with Sims 4 now, they're saying it's going to be proper single player. They're not going to force people to have a connection to play it.
Yeah.
So it might have just averted disaster slightly.
That's the thing. I kind of feel really weird because I played SimCity, and not when it came out. I played it about a week and a half after launch when they had solved most of the server issues. And I really liked it. And it's one of those games where like you feel like you're at risk, you know?
Yeah, Grand Theft Auto Online was like that.
It's like the man who knows too much, you know? I felt like as a journalist who was actually actively enjoying SimCity, I felt like my life was in danger.
It was rough. Like, I mean, GTA Online, I had the unenviable pleasure of reviewing that, or trying to. In the end, it turned out to be completely unreviewable. But for the first week, it was an unplayable game in which I had some of the best times I've ever had in a multiplayer game. But then my character got wiped. Like, everything bad that could happen happened to me with GTA Online. It was awful. But then about a month on, it was just it was a pretty fun multiplayer game. It was really good laughs. It was pretty great.
Well, I just really enjoyed SimCity because it was a fun city building game, and it became this thing of being like, because there was such a fervent hatred for it and fervent hatred for what EA had done with it and about how it wasn't working and all this stuff, it was really difficult because I was just like, but it's quite fun. But then it became that the bigger arguments were like, the systems don't work.
So I think a lot of the genuine criticisms of that game,
they're right.
Did it.
Yeah, like the traffic system didn't work properly and there was weird traffic jams, and Sims, they were talking about having every Sim having a persistent life, but Sims every day they'd get up and just walk to the nearest job, which I don't know about you guys, but that's not how jobs work.
I wish it were. It would cut my commute.
As working freelance, that's exactly how my job works. But no, I remember the point at which I actually got really annoyed with it was when I built like 3 or 4 different cities within an area, and it just like the economics between them didn't work. And a lot of people said like, it's not accurate simulation. And I'm like, I don't really care about that as long as it fudges it enough for me to feel real. But I had this crazy system where I was like, I only had 2 cities within the whole area. They both had train stations, right? And one of them had like 20,000 people leaving on the train to go to work every day. And then the other one had like 500 people arriving every day. And it was like,
where are they going?
Right?
That is terrifying.
And it's like, I hadn't built any other cities. I don't really have any friends on Origin either, because I know one of these people who logs into online systems and doesn't play with people. I like playing on my own. So it's like, it was literally this thing of being like, and it fucked me because of the fact that I built this whole system where these 2 cities would work as commuter cities, and these people were just getting lost. I don't know where they were going. And that annoyed me. I mean,
that's kind of sad. I want to read like a short story about what happens to those 1,500 people every day.
I can't tell you. It's like Fringe, more like, another 15,000 people turn to goop. My Fringe reference is always from episode 1. But yeah,
there's a few games now. We actually ran on Kotaku UK this morning. We ran a story about 1 year on, is SimCity actually good yet? And it's very strange that we now have this situation where you can play a game and it's literally a different game a week later or 2 weeks later or 6 months later. And it's changing the way that the game's media works as well, because you can't review that shit. You know, it's just impossible. And you try and review League of Legends, it's a different game every year or so, at least.
No, precisely. I mean, it just changes constantly.
What was your verdict then? I mean,
On Grand Theft Auto Online?
on SimCity's changes?
Basically, it's the same game, slightly improved, but a lot of the basic faults haven't been dealt with.
Like the city size. The cities are
Basically,
tiny.
the city sizes are still. He said the city sizes and the traffic system still don't work properly. Raising and lowering roads is a bit janky.
The thing was, I was actually kind of like, I wasn't like on side with them, but I was willing to believe their argument, right, about having the small cities, and because of this emphasis on, yes, you've got small cities, but the idea is we want you to make all these different cities that interact with each other and support each other.
Yeah.
And to not focus on trying to build the big city that is perfect, but to build different cities that serve different purposes and try and think about, you know, social sort of status and economies and stuff.
I like the idea
because
of
they didn't work.
Yeah.
Because it didn't work, I was like, well, actually, no, because I was really into that. And I was like, because there were some really smart things about it that I really liked. Whereas I liked the way that, rather than just having this emphasis on the way SimCity in the past always felt, is people just going, your city isn't good enough.
Yeah.
Fix it.
I'm building this perfect city.
Whereas it felt like in the new SimCity, I liked the way it was like, you can't build a perfect city. You can build a city that's really good for something. And I love, there were a couple of things that I felt were quite dark, but it was this thing of being like, oh yeah, you've got too many schools, so the people here are getting quite educated, and so they don't want to work in the coal mines, and you've got a coal mining town. So it's like, how about you don't make them so educated? So you would purposefully like make sure that they didn't have like too many schools, didn't have too many nice amenities. And it's like, this is dark.
But I remember when before they released it, they were talking about that. They were like, you can make a big fossil fuel city, and you can do that, and it will be dark. You know, and it's the idea of actually trying to get some sort of, not realistic, but at least representative sort of...
That's the thing, it was.
Goes at like real life macroeconomics like that is really, really interesting.
And that's the thing that annoyed me, is that because there was all this like kind of... And it's the same way people talk about hype, and people like, you know, a lot of like kind of gamers who are very skeptical of journalism process and stuff, like that they'll bitch about stuff like, you know, SimCity and go, oh, well, reviewers should have told us it was shit and stuff. But then actually in the same way that they complain about hype and the fact that everyone's like, oh, you've got too drawn in by the hype and you haven't told us this game isn't very good. They were creating this blockade where it was impossible to have a conversation about SimCity that wasn't, this game is fucking shit.
This game is everything that's wrong with
it was a shame
games,
because there was interesting things to talk about that game, and it was just impossible because I made a couple of videos about it when I was in my old job, and every time it was like, why are you talking about this game? It's like anti-hype.
It was like a pariah. We're not allowed to talk about it.
But it was a shame because I liked the way that it was this thing of like, you kept being like, oh, well, I want to make... If you wanted to do the good stuff, like the green energy and the high-end stuff...
Yeah, the high university...
It's expensive.
Yeah,
right?
hugely expensive.
So it's like... So you sort of think, well, we have to do this. And you have to do all of the kind of lowbrow...
You had to have like a lowbrow city nearby that you could basically steal all the workforce from.
And if you're playing single player, you'd have to like basically set up dummy cities to supply you with low income.
It was more about social engineering.
That's basically how London works.
Yeah.
I guess.
And that's the thing, is like when I was playing it, I was like, fuck. As somebody living in a city who has spent time looking at cities and understanding that these different parts of the city have to be there to support the other parts, it was like, shit. This game is actually about that, and it's in a way that wouldn't have worked if it was a traditional one big city game. It's just a shame that they fucked it up.
Yeah. One of the founders of IGN ended up doing his degree in like urban planning because of SimCity. That's why he chose his degree, because he played a lot of SimCity.
But it is that thing of like, you realise where you're like, oh, it's great, I'm storming towards it. We're going to get all this amazing stuff. We're going to be this highly advanced society.
That's
but then you get to this point where you realise it's like, oh, there isn't enough room for this. And I mean, that's the one thing I did like about the small city size, is it's like, I've got a third of my map being taken up by rubbish. And you go, I can't do any more rubbish. And you go, you guys over there, I'll pay you. Like, and you end up paying another city. And then that city is basically getting loads of subsidy for taking the rubbish away. But it's that thing of being like, you know, I think it's something that we don't think about enough in the world of being like landfills.
That's it.
It's like rubbish is permanent, and the only way to get rid of it in SimCity is by burning it. And it means that if you do start to max out the cities, it's like, what do you want to do with rubbish? You can either burn it and fuck up the environment, or you can pay some people from a poor area
To burn it and fuck
to
up
go
their
and live
environment.
next to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's kind of cool.
This is it. That's the whole thing that I think SimCity should do is make us aware of also how the physical characteristics of a place determine what happens there. Like, why do all the world's major cities, why are they all near rivers? Like that, things like that. Just the basic topography of like how a place works and how the character of the people who live there is actually determined by what you put in front of them.
Yeah.
It's all really, really interesting stuff.
That's something you don't get in the new SimCity because the plots that you're building on are all prescribed.
Right.
Whereas in the older SimCities, you had a huge region and then you could sort of plop your city next to a river. You made that choice to put it next to a river because you get hydro energy.
But in terms of
shipping and stuff.
in terms of amenities and stuff, that's the main thing. Like, it's like, that you will shape your people depending on what amenities they have and what opportunities they have. But I also love the way that in contrast to The Sims, which has this really tongue-in-cheek, like, isn't capitalism basically silly? The new SimCity was just really cold. It was like, it didn't have any opinion on it. It would just very calmly advise you what you have to do if you want to continue doing this. And it was that thing of like, I thought it was I found it quite dark at times for reasons that wasn't like being tongue-in-cheek dark. It was just like, if you want to do this, then, you want to continue being a coal mining company. Fine. You need to keep people stupid.
Yes.
Fantastic art style. I absolutely love the art style there.
It looked like a toy-like.
Yeah.
I loved the animation of it was great. I loved miniature stuff. It was awesome.
Interesting that you mentioned Fringe, because the guy who does the music for Fringe, Chris Tilton, also did the music for SimCity.
That makes sense.
Well,
I got to say, actually, the music and sound design, that I think was one of the reasons I got so hooked.
Well, it's my writing music. Whenever I want to get something done, I pop the SimCity soundtrack on. And I just
That's a good
listen to
tip.
it. So,
It's funny. I mean, it's one of those games where I don't think it's an amazing game, and I did get tired of it, and I did get fed up with it after a while. But I must have spent about 30 hours in a week. I got really addicted to it, and it didn't feel like the kind of addiction that you feel dirty from. I play some games, and I feel like I'm only playing it because I'm being manipulated.
Yes, I've got that relationship at the moment with FTL.
We talked a bit about it last week, but Carrot, go for it. I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
I love FTL, but it's become my default thing I do when I'm not doing anything else now. So if I have a minute of downtime, I just start a game of FTL.
you always take longer than you think, don't they?
And it does, yeah.
Take like 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's good for my commute because I come into London from Brighton, so it's like an hour-ish on the train, hour and 20 minutes in the morning. And that's like one solid run at FTL, one really solid run. But the problem is that it started just encroaching. Like, I wake up and I'm like, ooh, do I have time for FTL before shower? Yes. And then I'll be like, oh, no time for shower now. FTL has literally made me dirty.
It is. That's the thing, is it is very addictive. And I like it a lot, but the more I've played it, the more I've started to notice cracks, and the more I've started to feel like it's not me continuing to play it because I'm continuing to find
enjoy
new
it,
and interesting things. It's more I'm just addicted to it.
That's how I feel now. Like, I was enjoying it so much. I actually beat it. I beat only on easy, but I did beat it.
35 hours.
I was so freaking proud of
Beaten it
myself.
once.
On easy or normal?
On easy.
Yeah, I don't think I know anyone who's done it on normal.
No,
it's
and
so hard.
The advanced edition adds a higher level of difficulty as well, which is
Lol, no thank you.
no, don't need that. I think there's a criticism that people are often afraid to make of games, which is that they're too difficult.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I think
people
FTL's
are always afraid to make
too
that
difficult. Because the comeback is, well, you're just not good enough at
or that's the point of the game.
it. Yeah.
I'm having that issue with Dark Souls 2 at the moment, in that I mean, massive Dark Souls fan. I was, and Demon Souls. I was the first person to review Demon Souls in English, which is probably going to be the best thing I ever do in my whole life.
pretty cool.
Bring that game to some people. I found it in a Japanese...
That's the sort of thing that people would say, and I go, yeah, whatever, but I'm not actually, because I love that series enough. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's cool.
I found it in Japan. When I was living in Japan, I just found it in a shop and I thought, what's this? I've never heard of this. I took it home and I was like, holy shit, this is one of the best games I've ever played.
Did you go back to the shop the next day and it had gone?
I can't imagine what it'd be like to play one of those games without, just discovering it.
I ended up
and not
Googling it
having-
after, because I just literally flipped through, bought it, took it home, played it, was like, whoa. And then I Googled it and found like a gap thread and a few other things, but there was nothing really going on, so it was proper. And no one had written about it, and no one even knew it existed, really. So that was, I mean, it was really exciting because once, it kind of got a little bit of traction, and I reviewed it for Eurogamer back in the day, and once it got traction there, other people started reviewing it, and then eventually it came out in the US and Europe, and I was like, wow, I was a tiny part of that happening.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. But Dark Souls 2, I have a problem with it, not because it's too hard, because it's not too hard, it's just that the type of hard that it goes for gangs up on you. Well, I freaking hate it when it gangs up on you.
Yeah.
It's not fun to fight 3 sentinels.
No,
I'm not having
you
fun.
know, I've exactly had this. I'm still kind of processing my thoughts. I haven't even finished it yet. Actually.
No, neither have I. I'm only about 3/4 through.
It's top of my to-do list actually. After I moved, is just to spend a few days playing Dark Souls 2.
I've just got to 3 bosses, all of which are cheap, ganky bullshit, and I just can't be bothered anymore now. I will go back.
The Sentinels really annoyed me, and it's funny because I've been doing this sort of diary series where I've been like just playing a bit every day and then recording bits and doing voiceover, talking about what I've been doing. And it's funny because I'm like, I've complained in one of my recent videos saying I'm finding it a bit too easy generally, and I think, and then everyone's like, yeah, but in most of the boss fights we've seen you've been summoning in people, and I think that's because the game set a precedent for it that I've now got to the point where, because it never feels like that because that Sentinels boss is so very much like you have to. I'm sure you can do it on your own.
You can physically do it on your own if you really want.
But it's clearly meant.
Who's got the time?
It's clearly meant because it's 3 bosses.
It's like Ornstein and Smough. Like, yes, it's physically possible to do it by yourself, but you're not. You know, the game is encouring you to get other people.
Well, that's
to
it.
help.
I mean, I did that on my own divisional one. It was fucking hell.
Did you?
Yeah.
Christ.
But because when I was first playing it, it was like. When it either like,
I had the same experience as you. It was not fucking balanced.
It wasn't out
at that point.
It wasn't out. It wasn't balanced, and there wasn't any multiplayer. Which
I didn't finish Dark Souls for more than a year after that because I was so traumatized by Ornstein and fucking Smough. And the fact that you couldn't get any humanity because they didn't have humanity drops in the pre-release version.
No, they completely buffed it up. They're like, everyone's running out of humanity. Let's put it in loads of stuff.
Yeah, and also Christ, there were so many things about the game. The cursing they fixed.
Yeah.
Cursing used to halve your fucking health every single time I was going through that game with a 16th of a health bar at one point.
Yeah, it was hell.
It was awful.
It's genuinely hell.
I've really enjoyed not playing Dark Souls 2 until it was out for a few weeks, and I was like, this is just normal.
That's kind of why I did a thing. I did a thing where I made a video, and it was tough. There wasn't really much to say on the matter, but it was like this thing of when Dark Souls 2 was coming out, I knew I wasn't really going to trust the reviews, and I wasn't going to trust the reviews because everyone I knew who had played the first Dark Souls enough to really appreciate what it is and to appreciate what it was, they wouldn't want to review it.
Exactly, yeah.
And so I knew that all the people reviewing it would just be people who review games. And that's fine, and you can get information out of that. But really, it was like, I kind of thought, like, none of the reviews I'll read at launch will be, like, really give me an insight into what the game is like. And I was right. I read a lot of them, and, there were some okay reviews, but it was like, everybody I know who really knows the series is like, you're reviewing it? Like, hell no. Like, I'm staying away from that.
Yeah.
And with specialist games, that is a kind of problem. But
it is. I mean, this is the problem that we have in general in the games media, is that a lot of games now have people who are playing it that are much more informed about the game than the people who are reviewing it. Yeah. And, Souls is one of the very few games, that and Monster Hunter, and maybe like 2 others where I'm like as informed as as a very informed player. Most games I don't have the time to be.
I'm supposed to be putting together a big dissection of Dark Souls 2, and I'm going to, but it's like I've already got people like linking me to loads of critiques of the game and stuff. People have completed it 3 or 4 times. It's like, I don't have time. Like,
it's also like the economy of how publishing reviews works, and that
you don't have 2 weeks to spend on it, do you?
Exactly. So yeah, like reviews of things like that and 200, 300 hour RPGs and stuff, they're difficult to really come at it from the right angle, especially if you can't give that to a freelancer because they'll be working for pennies an hour.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you end up giving it to a freelancer who doesn't mind working pennies an hour, which is just dreadful and completely backwards. But I mean, with Souls, it's so personal to me. I wouldn't want to review it now.
No, same.
With 2, I was like, I know that I'm not going to feel objective about this. And that's fine. It's okay to not, it's okay to feel so attached to a series that you can't be like.
But
detached about it?
Have you not got beyond the Sentinels yet?
Oh no, I have now. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like 3/4 of the way through the game, but I'm stuck at 3 really annoying bosses. The main thing is that I've got a dex build, and I'm stuck at the fricking gargoyles again.
I've heard there's gargoyles.
Do you want me?
I've already heard it. I mean, don't spoil it for the podcast, but I've heard about that.
There's a really bullshit one.
That sounds kind of bullshit.
It's bullshit on about 9 levels that I could go into extreme detail on. But
every time the game's fucked me over so far, it has just been, it's thrown way too many things at me at once.
That's it. It's always there's too many things at once.
And it's for
I feel like it relies too much on that, and I don't think that Souls ever did rely on here's just lots of stuff. I think it was always a bit cleverer, in my opinion. No. So far, again, I've not finished it, but I think
there were a couple of occasions I remember it happening. Well, actually, I think the only time I really recall of it doing that without any knowledge, like obviously in the original Dark Souls you had that bit with the lava where you could see all of those big dudes, what they're called, the fucking what's his name, demons.
Capra demons.
Yeah, well, not the capper. There were loads of them as well.
Yes.
But but yeah, it was the fact that you could see them, like from miles away. You could see them. You're like, there's about 4 of them down there, and you're like, that was the first boss I fought. But I don't know if I want to fight 4 of them.
Oh, the Taurus
at once.
demons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was the fact that like you knew because you could see them, that you knew even way before you fought them that was a thing, and you then you had time to prepare for it and mentally prepare for it. I think the only time in the game it really ganged you that I recall properly was that bit quite near the start. In the Undead Parish, where there's a point where one of those really weak dudes ran off down a corridor and you chased after him and you got jumped by 5 of them. And that was lovely because of the fact that those enemies were so piss weak and so pathetic and you weren't afraid of them in the slightest that you didn't realise that when there was 5 of them, they could mince you. And that was like great because it wasn't really about we've fucked you with loads of people. It was about being like paying you the lesson of being like, you didn't think that they were dangerous. Think it through. And that's it. It always feels funny and clever when Souls does it. And Souls 2, I'm really enjoying it, but I do feel like it relies quite heavily on ganking, for the difficulty. I mean, the bosses are either weirdly easy or there's 3 of them. That's my current experience of the game. Yeah. And also, another strange thing about it is that so far, I've not come across, and I've been told this does improve in the last bit of the game, but so far I've not come across a boss with the majesty and the kind of tragic majesty of any of the Dark Souls ones. Like I've never seen anything that's made my jaw hit the floor. I think it's always been like, oh, here's a giant that rips off a limb and hits you with it. It's a bit like, oh. That ties into my general problem with the game so far is the fact that it doesn't feel like it with both Demon Souls and Dark Souls. It felt like they create a world that you would traipse through very slowly, but it felt like, well, obviously the first game was individual worlds that were all meant to be specific, very tonally different, but really well thought out.
God, Dark Souls, Tower of Latria, man. I'll never forget the Tower of Latria in my life. It's the best insane asylum in any game.
But now, and then with Dark Souls, it was this open world that wasn't actually that big, but the way it all interconnected, it meant you. Some people hated it because they felt it was backtracking, but personally, it was like I just felt like you becoming more acquainted with the place, and you got to really feel like it was a world, and you understood how it connected, and you thought about it more. Whereas Dark Souls 2 currently just feels like. It feels a bit. It seems like a shit complaint to make, but it feels a bit like a video game. It feels like you go through areas and then you don't go back to them. Like you go back to them because there's a merchant there you need to buy something from.
It's weird though because like any normal on any normal scale, Dark Souls is an incredible game. Yeah. But on the Souls fan scale, it's like just not maybe quite as incredible as the other ones.
Just elements of it feel a bit more disposable. I need more time to play it and more time to think about it. But
I hate to be one of those people because I feel like I'm being an asshole about it and I'm being like, oh yeah, we were there before, we were there first. But that's not the motivation behind, I think, a lot of Souls players' it's not that they hate it or they think it's shit. It's just they're just not quite as. It's just not the same.
There've been some moments. I mean, I love the fog. The fog. I love the fog. There was a bit with the fog.
The fog forest.
Yeah.
That is.
Just because it scared the shit out of me.
That is absolute class.
I was just like, I was terrified. And it's funny because it was in my most recent diary video was like, I'm talking about it and I'm talking about it like maybe an hour and a half after I'd done it, just being like, okay, I was in this fog forest. It scared the shit out of me. But it's almost like actually, if you look at the footage of me playing it, you don't really need to listen to me saying that it scared the shit out of me. Because this is the thing, I walk in, I just stand there with my shield up doing nothing, just looking around 360 with the camera for about a minute. And then just walk back, and I'm like, I don't want to go in. And I spent ages just being like, I don't want to go through here. But it's like, eventually I'm like, I have to. And so I spend ages like very gradually stepping forward very slowly. And you think you can hear shit, and you're like, and in the end, I properly panicked. It was like horror movie thing, and it was genuine. I just started running. I just started sprinting through it because I was scared. And it got to me in the way that I would in real life of being like very slowly going through and then just being like, fuck it. If I just keep running in one direction, I'll get to the end of something. And then it's like hitting a wall and being like, fuck, right, go left.
That reminds me of a time when I was drunk in Japan with a friend and we decided we were going to go into I can't remember I think it's Obaka, a ghost house. And the Japanese ghost house is freaking scary, like really scary. And this one was part of like a Matsuri circus kind of thing. And it was pretty janky. But me and my friend were a bit drunk and it was dark and everything. So we were kind of walking through this house and scary shit was happening and lots of kind of ring, grudge, horrible weird stuff was happening. And after about 5 minutes, we just started sprinting because we were too scared of it. So we're like screaming and yelling and sprinting through this house. And we end up in this dead end, and there's like this kind of zombie guy there, and we were just screaming at him. And eventually he's just like, ooh, starts pointing left. Like, ooh. And we're like, oh, thank you.
You're a signpost zombie.
But it was funny because he was sort of being scary for about 30 seconds while we just kept screaming and then just gently gesturing.
I legally can't touch you. You have to leave this room.
I still think a lot about the 28 hours. Was it
2.8 hours later?
Yes, that's it.
Which is the London zombie run, which runs across the country as well.
We were there, weren't we? But yeah, we did.
Did you do that?
Yeah,
I didn't do it because I'm genuinely deathly afraid of zombies. Like, I once slept in my hall after watching an episode of The Walking Dead because in my mind they couldn't get me in the hall, so I slept by myself in the hall, like in a blanket. It was the middle of the night.
It's really scary. I mean, they basically cut off an area of South London, not that far from here, actually.
Oh, that's scary.
Yeah, it was.
What was it like? Tell me about it.
Well, so they have a bunch of volunteers who are dressed up as zombies. They're shambling zombies and running. They are running
they've got
zombies as well.
too.
They've got zombies. But the moment you get given your wristband and they say, right, it's begun, here's your first clue, this new sort of, your mood just changes and everything. Suddenly London becomes really threatening and weird, and like all the other normal pedestrians and traffic just sort of disappears, and you're just scouring the roads and the alleyways for zombies. The first one comes out of a park on like Bermondsey Street, in like in a hospital dressing gown.
I would just run away. I just run away.
Oh, we did.
That's exactly what we did.
Did
Started
you?
screaming, immediately ran into the middle of the road, which they tell you not to do. But you probably
forget.
lose your mind.
You
You
lose
start
it.
running into the street. You don't think for a second how ridiculous you look to everyone around you. But they have loads of sort of set up areas, like they lead you into like a multi-story car park, and you have to get to the top.
Because you need the next clue of where to go next, and so they force you into positions.
Oh,
where
no.
So there was the multi-story car
No.
park was I think that was the first time I got because basically like it kind of breaks it for a split second when they catch you. They basically means if you get touched by a zombie, you have to stop, and they draw on your arm with a UV marker. So they basically they can see again that you've been got.
But you'd be so scared until you were got, wouldn't you? You'd just be like, and then you get got, and you're like, oh yes, this is.
It was so scary. Like I was properly freaking out.
They have like human actors as well. Well, actors who are acting human.
Oh no! Do they get eaten sometimes in front of you?
They do. I guess they'll probably change it up every year, so I don't think it's a spoiler to say like there was a school teacher who'd gone mad and thought that we were her students, and she was giving us all sweets. And there was like a mad professor who developed like a repellent, like a zombie repellent. Yeah. And you had to get to him and huddle close to him, and all the zombies started amassing like 4 feet away from us. And he'd like run away and draw them, and you'd have to like run as fast as you can to get out through this tiny gap. And
it was insane.
And it ends with you getting to the zombie HQ, where they put you in a decontamination chamber,
and they basically like scan you to see if you're a zombie or not. And it ends with a big zombie party where like if you got through without being caught, then you're fine, but otherwise they kind of do you up to look like a zombie, and then you're going to have a bar. But it was almost like I couldn't enjoy the party because it was like, it was a nice idea, but my mind was still so much in a terror survival zone that I got there and it was like, this is no time for drinks. I was like, I was a changed man. I remember because we got split up at one point and it was like, oh my God.
What, were you on your own?
Well, no,
I don't think I could even handle this. My brain's not very good at distinguishing between what's real and what isn't at the best of times, let alone when people are trying to trick me.
Well, it's like Steve about saying like running into the road, like we behaved like so strangely. And there was a point at which I tried to sprint past these zombies, and I sprinted with such speed and then was going to go down this corridor and then realised that there were more zombies there.
Oh no!
So I had to basically like continue running at full speed and do a thing where I just suddenly had to change my direction of my running quite rapidly whilst maintaining the inertia. And I was going really fast. And as you might know, you can't do that. So basically I managed to keep going quite fast for some way, curving around, and then just completely like lost my gravity and just fell. And I just bailed.
Oh no.
And I bailed and hit my hands on the floor, but I'd like cut my hand open. And it was one of those things where I hit the concrete with such force that it wasn't a graze. It was like, I basically stabbed myself with asphalt and it was bleeding a tiny bit. But it was this thing of then I was like, I got up and everyone was like, oh shit, Matt, you all right? You all right? It's just like my immediate, I wasn't going, oh, I'm bleeding, I've cut my hand open.
You're gone without me.
I was like, it's fine. I think the first thing I said to Mike, I said, it's fine, they didn't get me. Because it was like, I was so in that mindset that I'm like, I'm hurt, but they didn't bite me, so it's fine.
I had an experience like that with another sort of real game called The Heist, where I've
heard about this,
it was
yeah.
good. They rent out a warehouse and they have guards, and essentially a group of 5 of you have to get in, infiltrate the warehouse, get stuff out, get to the getaway vehicle and drive away. But the problem was that I was doing this with another games person called Dan Grill, and he and I were playing it alongside basically 3 kind of quite posh students. And me and Dan went into immediate like video game fail state mode, where we were like, if we get caught, then it's game over, man. Game over. So we were being really careful. We were like sneaking around. We were trying to disable traps and stuff. Meanwhile, the 3 students just ran in, set off all the alarms, just picked up some stuff, got put in jail. It was all fine. They just weren't in the moment, whereas we were both just like, if we get caught, something really bad will happen, even though all that's actually going to happen is that a dude's going to put you in a square that's taped off and say you can't move for a minute now.
The zombie thing really got under your skin. And I think what was lovely about it was there were moments where we started to forget about it. I remember when we thought we'd cheat the system because we just looked down this road and we're like, there's zombies down that road. Let's not go down that road. Let's go around this road and go around the side. And then we just started chilling out. And we were just walking along and chatting and laughing and just basically like thinking...
Do you happen to have
we
zombies
clever?
in ages?
And then I turned
never
around.
watched zombie films. That's when the zombies
That's when they
attack.
get you.
Yeah.
And there was this thing of I basically just turned around, glanced around to look behind me to just check, and there was a zombie just walking behind us about 10 feet behind us. And I literally just went, guys! I'm just like started hitting them on the back, and everyone turned around and looked, and then we all just immediately went,
I actually don't think I could do it, you know. I think it would really
You would
probably
just shut
traumatise
down.
me forever. I'd be in a mental asylum.
It
afterwards.
traumatized me substantially. It was I got way more into it than I thought I would, and I knew I'd get into it. Actually, on this note, we're going to be doing it next month. I don't know what will come out of it, but me and the rest of the guys from Shut Up, Sit Down we're going along to something in Kent, I think, which is called Watch the Skies, which is basically a kind of like a full day with like loads of people. Where it's basically like XCom, but in real life. So I think we're in control of Japan collectively. I think I'm the Prime Minister and someone else is the general military thing.
Nice.
I've no idea what the hell it's going to be
sounds
like,
like
but hopefully that will, because I love XCom more than
I love XCom.
anything.
More than zombies.
Probably more than zombies, yeah. I think if they were going to make imagine they made a TV series about XCom.
That would be so good.
It would be good, wouldn't it?
Imagine how good it would be.
What was that awful American TV series that was a V?
Oh yeah, that was terrible.
That's a little bit like XCOM, isn't it?
It's got
bit,
that.
yeah.
It's got that really hot woman from Homeland in it. V.
Claire.
I don't know her name, so I have no idea.
Thingy.
You can say anything. I'm like, yeah, probably her. I think that aliens are. This is going to sound like a hilarious statement, but I feel like aliens are currently underdone in video games. I really feel like we could do with more XCOM style good aliens, because aliens can be as scary as zombies.
I'm really hoping that the current thing they're doing for Axis are doing with bringing back like Civ space stuff, like it's kind of an Alpha Centauri callback almost. With their, what's it called? Like
I can't remember.
Civilization Planets. it's not called that. It's called something. But they're doing space stuff, and it'll be like their own space stuff. I'm really hoping that they use that as a kind of maybe testing ground, maybe kind of springboard to do something new with XCOM, because I was so worried that they were going to fuck up XCOM and not do it justice. But the game they made, the original XCOM remains one of my favourite all-time games, and the new one remains one of my favourite all-time games, but for different reasons. They're just amazing. And I kind of almost felt like after playing it and after seeing what they did with the expansion and seeing all the interesting things they had and interesting ideas they had, I'm like, everyone's like, oh, I hope they do Terror for the Deep. It's like, I don't want them to do Terror for the Deep. I want them to like, I think they've proven their shit. And now I want to see them do a new XCOM game where they just make it up all themselves. Like where they don't have to do sectoids and mutons and floaters and stuff, where they literally just, it's like they've earned their badges, like they just let them do it. And I'm really hoping that they release a new XCOM where like you say, with aliens being not done
Aliens are
interesting enough.
so scary when, you know, I mean, if we think about it, you can make anything you want with an alien.
Yeah.
You know, you can get really, really
I
devastating.
had some
I
scary
thought
moments.
XCOM was you know, it was jump scary. So
I still get pretty scary with the atmosphere actually, because when I'm playing it for the
I don't like those big thin men.
Oh, I hate them.
They're horrible.
I think there's a rotation of aliens zombies, ninjas, pirates.
I'd be up for some more pirates, actually. It's been a while since we've had some
We just had Assassin's Creed 4.
Oh, no, that's a very good
I
point.
haven't had a chance to play it yet. I'm in Pirate Phil.
I actually played like 30 hours of that. It just slipped my mind entirely.
It's the Assassin's Creed effect.
Yeah.
Elite Dangerous. I don't know if you ever played the original Elite or any of the Elite games. They have an alien race. So when you leap from system to system in Elite Space Trading Classic, you go through hyperspace. You go through these hyperspace wormholes. But for the few seconds that you're in the wormholes, you're in something called witch space, which is all like pink and weird, and no one really knows what happens in witch space. And in that space, there are Thargoids, and 1 in 500 times they can pull you into witch space when you're hyper. So every time you hyper jump, you could get abducted by this alien race.
Oh, I don't like
that's
it.
terrifying. And
That's really scary.
they were like really mysterious insectoid.
That's great, because
things.
it's just like, you literally just properly fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I used to spend a lot of time when I was a kid watching Stargate, which I did find scary at the time. I then watched it again as an adult. It's not remotely scary. But also Farscape. And they just have weird aliens. The thing I like about those shows is they have weird-ass aliens.
Yeah.
I started watching Star Trek Next Generation again recently, just mainly because there's not that much good on Netflix. But also, no, I've got that like sci-fi.
Try
vibe,
RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yeah. Is that offensive? That sounds like an offensive comment. I'm going to get called up for this to the jury of ethics. But yeah, I'm looking forward to some more sci-fi alien-y stuff at the moment, and that's why actually Elite Dangerous.
We're definitely in a space mood, aren't we? We've got Star Citizen, we've got Elite Dangerous.
Star Citizen will never come out.
They'll keep
you know.
adding new seat coverings.
Did you see
to
the
it.
latest footage from it though?
No,
My God,
they've got too much money.
Looks ridiculous.
It's destined to fail
looks
one way or
ridiculous.
another. It will crash like a Ferrari.
See, I've never played a minute of EVE Online in my life because it's so nerdy. Like, no offense,
you don't need to, do
no
you?
offense to anybody who plays EVE Online. I have immense respect for the game. It's closed. I've been to FanFest twice. I'm going again next week. I love it, but I
good.
can't play it.
I'll see you
Are
there.
you?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Have you ever been before?
No.
OMG. Come on.
Going to fan fest.
Put you in our luggage, Matt. But yeah, EVE Online, I'll never play it because it's just too Star Trek-y for me. Like, I like big explodey space. It's not.
I loved EVE Online I played it for about a year of my life I spent in
did
that
you?
game. And I'm a big fan of single player, even in MMOs. Like, I prefer questing by myself, and then I begrudgingly do all the guild stuff when you have to in the end game. But with EVE Online, like, cooperation and corporations are built into the very core of how that game operates. Like, a few hours into the game, you're expected to sign up to a corporation and start working with them. And I just had such a low level job. I saved up all of my money and bought one of the better entry level mining ships.
This
that
is
had
exactly
a huge
why I didn't
cargo
play
bay.
it.
And
I want to be king of the universe immediately.
but my job was just to sit next to the asteroid belt while all of the other corporation members did all the mining, and they just come up to me and they just dump their rock cargo, all their minerals onto and I just sit there and go, this is fun.
There's something weirdly perverse about that.
You've got a history for it. We don't have time to talk about it, but I'm going to, next time, definitely have to talk to you about the Space Station 13, because we both had similar experiences of being inept janitors.
Yeah.
And just being like, it's
The
my
more
job.
mundane the job, the more you enjoy it, I think.
Especially in space. There's something about having a mundane job in space.
Well, I
Just put
loved planet scanning in Mass
They should
Effect.
make a,
that
they
was
should make-
mundane and fun.
Oh, yeah, it was. Everyone complained about that.
I loved it. I thought it was really
planet
soothing.
scanning.
You used to spend Sunday mornings doing it.
I scanned every fucking planet in that game, and that's insane.
That's
It was
ridiculous.
the sound effects that made it so nice. Like, when you launch it, went
Yeah.
Really great.
fantastic.
They should make a Dead Space prequel where you are just an engineer.
A standalone planet scanning game.
I was gutted
On the
when,
iPad.
I was gutted when there were 3. They said, "Don't worry, we've got rid of planet scanning." I was like,
I never
"Why?"
Played, I never played 3, and that's one of the reasons why.
I was blown away by it, because up until that point, I was like, "What? There was people had a problem with that."
You
Like,
put more
I liked
shooting
it.
in. Well,
Great.
Right.
The shooting was very nice.
The shooting was good, but it's no
enough shooting.
planet scanning, is it?
No, it's not. What is wrong with us?
Oh, I like the Mako stuff when it wasn't expecting you to like dodge lava or fight in it.
I like the Mako stuff as well. And did they get rid of the Mako in 2?
Yeah. They could never find an ideal. Well, the Mako was good, but the problem was they should have never had a section where you had to drive it.
Fight a worm or whatever.
I mean, you were trying to evade towers and enemies whilst trying to avoid lava, and I kept falling in the lava, and it was like, this isn't. It's like trying to wrestle a bouncy castle.
You can go over ramps on the moon. That's just sells the Mako for me.
Yeah.
Also, didn't it go forwards and backwards? Like you could just randomly turn it around, like it was all 4-wheel terrain. You could. It was like a sidewinder.
Yes.
You could sort of.
But it reminded me of, and it made me actually really, and maybe actually we have no idea. This is pure guessing, but this might be the sort of thing that we might get in No Man's Sky. But what I loved about
No Man's Sky.
the
Again,
Mako,
more space.
I know there's so many things, and
I'm sticking over in the rotation.
It is,
coming,
yeah.
but,
and I'm so excited when it all hits. I might buy it. I saw Alec Mears bought a ridiculous joystick, go from rock, paper, shotgun, and I might do that as well when it gets closer to. But I love with the Mako landing it and looking for stuff. It reminded me of, what's that called? It was called Star something. I've forgotten. It was an old Mega Drive game. It was on Spectrum and stuff before
I
then. It
don't
was Starfleet or something.
I'm not
It was
gonna know
basically, it was a ridiculously hard game where you'd fly around planets and it would be really hard to land your ship without crashing it. And then you'd send a little mining thing out and you'd have to look for minerals and then bring it back before it ran out of fuel. But it gave you a real sense of like the universe being massive and unknown and dangerous and just going out on a little planet and exploring it and not knowing what you'd find. And every now and then, most of the time you'd just be like, minerals. But then out of nowhere, you'd be like flying around the city and you'd be landing from space and you see a zoomed out version of the planet and you see something in the corner and be like, what the fuck was that? And you go over there and it'd be like an ancient temple or something. You'd be like, what the fuck? Because all the planets just didn't have anything on it. And it was that thing of being like driving up to it really cautiously.
There was a Stargate MMO it was basically a massive money sink. It was like it was a huge scam eventually.
Wasn't it just a third-person shooter?
Well,
that they said was an MMO.
Basically, yeah. And I remember being taken in a weird Hummer to see this game, and instead it was like
a euphemism.
It was at Gamescom, and they were just like, "Here, come see our demo," and it was just a giant Hummer, and I was like, "Okay," so I got in and just started driving. And I'm like, "I'm going to be killed in the woods."
Replaced with
Can't believe I fell for the old come and see our demo.
But it was just like a tiny, you know, what those like limo screens. It was like a tiny screen looping the YouTube trailer of Stargate, and two quite sad-looking men who were kind of talking about what they thought.
You were expected to be blown away by getting a car ride.
I know, that's basically, it's like, you can go in a car. Little journalist.
Yeah.
You can even go in the front seat if you ask nicely.
Well, that's me sold.
But yeah, it was.
I still remember after reviewing Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and we had to check out the zombies bit because that was part of the things we had to play extensively for the review, and they'd organised it so we'd spend a few hours, and they kept saying, "Oh, if you can beat this high score, you'll win a T-shirt." And it was just like, and then eventually we beat the high score, and he was like, "Oh, congratulations, you won the T-shirt," and it's just like, I don't want a T-shirt.
I'm not 15.
Yeah, it's this thing of being like,
Games Master.
it was this thing of just being like, do you have any concept of how inappropriate this is? And being like, well done, you've just won a prize for being good at the game you're reviewing.
Yeah,
it's like,
so weird.
It was this thing of me being like, if I wasn't in a hotel in the middle of fucking nowhere, I would be leaving.
Yeah. I mean, review events. Sorry, go on.
I felt awful for the new Borderlands, the pre-sequel.
Is that what they actually called it?
It's called the pre-sequel. They had some badges there, and I thought
badgers.
Badges. Badges. I would have taken a free badger.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, why not?
Borderlands themed plush badgers.
I thought it was the USB stick with the assets on it, so I was like, "Get out of my way! I'm getting one of these." And all of my peers going, "Oh, Steve digging into the freebies over there."
Fill your pockets with pin badges. It's quickly Stephen pin badge. Oh, it's terrible. Forget the mini burgers. I want a fucking badge.
Dear.
Anyway, I forgot to send out the bat signal on Twitter this week to ask for questions, but it's probably for the best because we've run over. So no questions this week, but next week we'll continue with some questions. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening. And hopefully, when I press the button and stop recording this podcast, it will A, save, and B, not make us sound like horrible Daleks.
I would like to sound like... Could you just make me sound like a robot for the whole thing?
We don't have multi-track recording, so I'm afraid I simply don't have the technology to do that.
We do not have the technology.
To rebuild me as a robot.
In the future, maybe. Anyway, thank you very much for listening, and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.